In today's lesson, we'll be learning how to convert factored form to standard form. In a previous lesson, we learned that a quadratic relation is really just a type of pattern, and this pattern can be represented with an equation. This equation can be in factored form, or it can be in standard form. You can convert factored form to standard form using the process of expanding, or you can convert standard form back to factored form using factoring. Today, we'll be focusing on expanding. In our first example, we have an equation of a quadratic relation in factored form. We want to convert it to standard form using the process of expanding. The table you see to the right will help us do that. We're going to start by taking 5x and placing it right over here. Next, I'm going to be taking -2 and I'm going to be putting it right over there. Next, I'm going to be taking 4x and I'm going to be placing it right over here. And last, I'm going to take a +3 and I'm going to place it right over here. I'm going to start by multiplying this term and putting the answer in this empty box. Since I'm multiplying terms, that means I need to use the product rule. The first step is to take a look at the coefficients. The coefficient of this term is 4 and the coefficient of this term is 5. We want to multiply coefficients. So 4 multiplied by 5 is going to give you 20. Next, we need to take a look at the bases. The base of this term is x, and the base of that term is x as well. Bases stay the same, so I'm going to rewrite an x right over there. Last, you want to take a look at the exponents. There is no exponent here, and there is no exponent here, which just means that there's going to be a hidden 1 in both of these empty spaces. We want to add exponents. Therefore, 1 plus 1 is going to give you 2. We're going to repeat this process when multiplying this term and putting our answer in this empty box. We want to first start with coefficients. We already know the coefficient of this term. It's 4. But what about that term? The coefficient here is going to be -2. We want to multiply coefficients. Therefore, 4 multiplied by -2 is going to give you -8. Next, we want to take a look at bases. We already know the base of this term is x, but what about this term? Well, there is no base for this term, but that doesn't matter because bases stay the same. So that base here is going to be rewritten right over there. Last, we want to take a look at exponents. We already know the exponent of this term, and it's 1. But what about this term? Well, since there is no base, that means there is no exponent, which means that there's nothing for this exponent to add to. So that 1 is going to remain the same. So I'm going to write a 1 right over here. Again, I'm going to repeat the same process when multiplying this term with this term and writing the answer in this empty space. Let's start by looking at the coefficients. We already know the coefficient of this term is +5. But what about this term? Well, the coefficient here is going to be +3. We want to multiply coefficients. So 3 multiplied by 5 is going to give you 15. Next, you want to take a look at the bases. We know that the base for this term is x, but what about this term? Well, that term doesn't have a base, and it doesn't really matter because bases stay the same. So that x is going to be rewritten right over there. And last, we want to take a look at exponents. The exponent for this term is 1. But what about this term? Well, there is no exponent since there is no base. So there's nothing for this exponent to add to. So that 1 is going to stay the same. So I'm going to write a 1 right over here. We're going to repeat this process one last time when multiplying this term with this term and writing the answer in this empty box. This should be pretty straightforward since you have +3 multiplied by -2. And that is going to give you -6. I'm now going to take these 4 terms and I'm going to place them in this bracket. I'm going to rewrite 20x to the power of 2 -8x to the power of 1 positive 15x to the power of 1. You'll notice I added a plus sign in there, and then negative 6. At this point, you want to look for like terms. These would be like terms since they have the same base and the same exponents. When you combine these like terms, you're going to end up with 7x to the power of 1. Now, when you're combining like terms, bases are going to stay the same and exponents are going to stay the same as well. 20x to the power of 2, I haven't touched it. I'm going to add a plus sign in front of this term, and this minus 6, I haven't touched it as well either. Since there's a number in front of the brackets, that means you'll need to use the distributive property. So everything inside the bracket, it's going to get multiplied by positive 1. But anything multiplied by positive 1 stays exactly the same. So 20x to the power of 2 stays exactly the same. Positive 7x to the power of 1 stays exactly the same. And minus 6 stays exactly the same. Let's clean this up before we finish up. So we don't like to see exponents that are 1. So I'm going to erase that 1. So we've successfully converted factored form to standard form.